listeners, to the Cosmic Confluence podcast with your host Sana, and this is where spirit, story, and synchronicity intertwine. Now, today's episode, listeners, is going to stretch your mind and stir your soul. Now, imagine being only 7 years old, on the edge of death from heat stroke, only to be sent back by an angel with a message: your job isn't done. Listeners, that moment sparked a journey that one day birthed an entire universe: the Sigma Squad, a graphic novel saga rooted in ancient Gnostic gospels and designed not for scholars, but for seekers who might never touch a dusty tome. And listeners, my guest is a creator, truth seeker, and a visionary who, when faced with the dominated classical literature, he dared to write the narrative, literally. His stories, they don't just reimagine myth, they reclaim the sacred humanity. And from Dante to Beowulf to the Amazons, he is here to show us how storytelling can actually heal, awaken, and rebalance. So, listeners, meet my guest, Peter Gunn. Peter, welcome to the Cosmic Conference, and really honored to have you here with us.
It's a pleasure to be here, son. I appreciate you letting me be on your podcast.
Absolutely, Peter. I'm really excited to explore about your graphic novel, the origins and everything. But before that, I think our listeners would love to explore more about your origin as well. I mean, you had a very interesting event just at the age of 7. Um, what do you remember most clearly about that moment, and how did it shape your path as a creator? I mean, moreover, as a human.
Well, when I had my NDE, um, and at that age, you're not sure if it's real or not, because an angel told me my job isn't done. I have to go back, and then of course I woke up back in my body. It took a little time for me to understand it was more than a dream, especially when um, the psychic events started happening afterwards. I'd say about a couple weeks after my NDE, I noticed
Mm.
that I was having precognition, things like that happening. And then I realized, okay, this is the dream. And it really set me on my path because it's every day I wake up with that thought, knowing that I have something to do here, and I have no time to waste. So it moves me every day, every time, every second.
Hmm, that's lovely. That's lovely. And uh, uh, many whenever we hear about NDEs, many people would describe that, I saw white light, or I met, I kind of saw myself, but just as a physical entity, just lying down there, unconscious. Or maybe I saw everyone from above, just like a kind of out of earth experience. I mean, was it like a one that was more from a spiritual perspective, that you kind of understood, the realms away from the physical, boundaries of earth? I mean, how was exactly it?
Well, I, I want to say I'm not going to say this is status quo for all NDE people that have experienced them, but there's sort of a knowledge or knowing that you bring back with you.
Mm.
Once you experience the love that you feel on the other side, was all encompassing and it radiates throughout your body. It's like being immediately recharged and it's hard to describe what it feels like. It's just I guess you could say a mother's warmth, holding your child, really, in that sense, and it stays with you versus a dream versus something you imagined, which is might be slightly jarring, but you can shrug it off, but the NDE you can't, and it stayed with you, and the knowledge, the wisdom stays with you, knowing that um you continue on after this life.
Mhm.
And I'm on the record to say I believe that it's not like just one life. I mean, there are people that have lived one life, but some of us have lived numerous lives and lived over and over and over again, and it's quite normal. So it's life changing. You go out with that knowledge, and you know if you're doing your job that you were set to do, you need to spread the word and let people know.
Absolutely. And now let's talk about your novel as well, a graphic novel, Peter. Very, very heartwarming motivation in there, because you're absolutely, I mean you are right. Some of the classic, epic poems, what we have studied in literature, which have shaped our culture, our childhood, they are male dominated.
Mhm.
But that's what kind of motivated you to explore. So if you would like to share the backstory of how you realized this and how you started to build Sigma Squad.
Well, I started reading the H Gnostic Gospels, like the Sophia, things like that, and the texts, and realized that there's not only similarities between that and you know just about all religions, but they
Mhm.
also talk about different levels of humanity. Okay, so it's we not only are here on this earth to do a job, but we're also here to maybe help out the other side. Okay, so there are people here that are compromised, and you have to realize that and act accordingly. Um, they talk about, of course, on each side you have God or the God source, and then Satan, or what they call the demiurge. Okay, he has archons, just like the demons, and God has his angels. But then there's different levels within that, like Hylics at the bottom, which would be easily controlled by the archons. Okay, as you can think of them as almost a hollow shell, okay, waiting to be used, or a robot. Okay, they if we were around them, we would take their human. There would be nothing to cue us in unless you're very much an empath like myself, and I would feel something. Um, and then there's what they called pneumatics, which is the higher level psychics, and then aeons, which are supposedly uh, angelic, where God would split an angel into one male, one female, and then it would go into the bodies of an aeon and be here to help. Okay, so there's sort of a game or a war going on between the two sides. And once you realize that, things sort of come together, and um, you understand that you're playing a game. Okay. And when you look at it from that viewpoint, things that go bad or go wrong are put in different lights. It's just the game playing out, really. Stop looking at things as, within your lifetime. So let's say you live 80 years, okay? That's very minute compared to eternity in which the game is being played out. Okay.
Mhm.
So stop seeing things that way, and look at it as sort of like you zoom out. Okay. And you would understand a lot better that way. I started the Sigma Squad and try to help people understand what's going on behind the scenes. So, because not everybody is willing to pick up a book without any pictures in it and start reading it, like the Bible, because a lot of people will see a Bible and not even bother with it because it's so thick. So I wanted to appeal to what we call the Joe Sixpack, the normal guy, someone that could enjoy graphic novel or comic books. Manga is very popular as well, and would be willing then to go through it and then maybe understand, come away with a knowing like, oh, this could actually be happening in the background. And I'll show them how. I'll start to connect dots per se. I like to say it, that way, because um my mind works that way very much. I'll think of I'll be told something 20 years ago, and I'll put a dot in my head, like, or like hacking a pin on a board now, and then all of a sudden I'll start linking things to it further on in my life, and then it all comes together, makes sense, and makes a story, and then like, oh, now you understand why this is going this way. So I'm trying to do that with to understand, to connect dots with people, so they understand what's going on in the background and why things are going the way they are. Things aren't as they appear.
Hmm. That definitely makes sense. And a lot of themes you explore in your novels. Of course, there is the sacred feminine energy, masculine and feminine energy. Then, we have uh, the whole idea of, exploring time portal. So, are these, I mean, it's a bit of a flip side, question, which few of our listeners would have in their mind that, um, do you, I mean, was it more about these ancient texts, like the Gnostic Gospels, that felt so relevant to our current reality and to younger generations, or was it something else that, uh, you know, motivated you to have this storytelling?
Well, I would also, when I was younger, and I still do to this day, have visions occasionally. And there was one that was repetitive, and I, there's no doubt in my mind that it actually happened.
Mhm.
And this is also why I'm drawn to storytelling. Okay, is I believe I lived in another life. Okay, in Alexandria, the library of Alexandria, as a hired guard, as a contracted guard, and I was there during when the and killed during when the Romans ransacked the place. So it's it the visions like that are very real, and I'll come, I'll wake up sweating and things like that if it happens at night when I'm sleeping. But it's there's a certain knowing that's within your heart, your spirit, versus a normal dream. There again, where the knowledge comes with you and it lives in your soul. It still exists versus something that's just nonsense. You know it in your heart that it happened and it's true. And
Right.
it's that's why I try to push out the narrative that I'm doing is to let people understand that even back then in Alexandria, then they were opposing forces pushing the narrative in the game. That's why the Romans ransacked Alexandria. But I'm trying to let people know uh that cue them in into what's going on behind the scenes, even to this day.
Wow. That's really cool, Peter. That's really cool. And thank you for sharing that. Because not only you are getting inspiration from the ancient origins, but also from your own life experiences. And have you dealt with skepticism around this? Especially, of course, we have in the popular culture, in media, and everywhere, exploring about the um, feminine energy. However, a lot of discussion is around how it is kind of creating an imbalance and kind of letting the exploration of masculine energy, like, sidelined. Have you dealt with skepticism like this?
Well, you have to. I always think of the map of consciousness when I do a skepticism. Where's this person at? How are they coming at me? How are they perceiving themselves that want me to perceive them? And
Mhm.
if it's a lot lower, if it's automatically, if they're using cuss words, swear words, and they're automatically starting to, or try attempting to undermine what I'm saying, they're at a low energy level at the map of consciousness. So you have to treat them accordingly. And a lot of times I won't respond. I'll just let it go. And that's the highest class, because if someone insults you or says something negative, you just walk away. It immediately goes back on them, really.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. I agree with you, Peter.
Or at least wait. I'll wait for 10 seconds and then respond with, "Is that the best you have? Is that the only thing?" Then they're again trying to divert it back to them.
Hmm. No. Uh, that could be the most obvious way, actually,
Yeah.
to give or to reply back.
Mhm.
And also, I would also like to throw some light on your journey in the later half. I mean, your personal transformation, especially in 2020. You mentioned that you had a wake up call. If you would like to, share a bit about that particular realization, and how exactly did it shape your journey of storytelling? Because this global chaos, it has actually unfortunately has given us a lot of um, inspiration to, do kind of a self introspection, have some personal clarity. So if you would like to share.
Well, I mean, I think 4020 was a wake up call for everybody, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, I like to think the best of humanity. I try to think the best of everybody, at least I attempt to. But when I saw how everybody was so quick to don a mask, so quick to listen to the narrative, so quick to get in place, sort of like a lemming per se, and
Mhm.
and wait their turn in line for a shot, that it scared me. I had to take a step back and then start, either again zoom out and start looking at things like, I can't believe this, and I didn't fall for the narrative. I didn't take the shot. I will never take a shot. And it's a very few people that will do it. Honestly, I hate to say it. It's more like 5 to 10% of the people that didn't take the shot. So it's a very few sort of people that didn't do it, at least in America, that is. And
Mm.
we were, the people that didn't do it were, of course, excluded and so and ostracized because of it. I mean, not only for that time, but for years. Probably for about 4 years, honestly. Yeah, and
Mm.
it scared me. It's That's why I started writing Sigma Squad, because there again, I want to wake people up. They need to understand what's going on, and not to fall into place and start to at least start critical thinking, asking questions. Why is this person acting like this? Why am I being asked to do a certain thing or a certain task? And don't automatically step into place when someone in perceived authority tells you to. Okay, you are your own person. You're in control of your own body and your own mind. You don't have to step in place and do what they request of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you, Peter. And now I just want to dive deeper into the stories that you are telling. Let's go to the Amazons. You chose to tell the story in a lyrical poetry. Um, like a form traditionally reserved for epics, rarely used today. So, what inspired this creative choice, Peter, and how did it enhance the themes of power, then legacy, and then feminine sovereignty within the story?
Well, let's pretend that we're looking at an old antique uh cabinet, or in the corner. Now, a lot of people will think antiques are ugly, but especially the States, you pay a high price for them because of the rarity, correct? But what's the first thing people will do when they see an old antique is this, piques their curiosity. They will pull out the drawers and look for the dovetail joints, the joinery, the craftsmanship is what they're looking for because they admire it. And that's
Mm.
what was done in the past. It's the craftsmanship of the epic poems and the way they were worded and the way they were written. That why is Edgar Allan Poe's poetry so famous, especially like The Raven? Because people admire the craftsmanship. People think that I couldn't do that. I admire it. It's a good story. And think about what if he had gone further, and turned it into a novel, you know, so we would know more about it. It probably even be in, a bestseller back in the day. So that's what I wanted to do is by inventing LLP, linked lyrical poetry, it lets the reader know, yes, you're reading poetry. This isn't just the normal worded epic like the Odyssey, but you're also, it's not given craftsmanship. You're getting something unique. You know that someone spent time to write it in this way because it's you couldn't do it on your own. And I'm going to start teaching classes here in America here in a couple months for creative writing and LLP, and hopefully I'll get some more people interested in writing in that fashion. But it's extremely time consuming. If you decide to go down that road, you could easily spend an hour for a paragraph, and then of course, it can be very daunting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. And especially in this age of AI and all this, you know, um, AI worded work, I think it's very important to have human led creativity.
Yes.
time taking. It's daunting, as you said. However, I am a huge advocate of human led creativity. So
Yes.
that's
I've actually did some of my work, LLP work into AI just to see where it was at, and it couldn't do it. And I believe it's because it takes too much creativity, thinking outside the box to make it work. So
Mm.
it's not at that point. It can't duplicate it. At least LLP you can.
And also, Peter, let's also I would like to touch upon your second work. Um, Quite diverse. I mean, the Kurupi's curse. Uh,
Mhm.
you are tapping into lesser known South American mythology, which is, um, it is, I mean, kind of, oftentimes overlooked or, ignored. So
Yes,
what,
very much so.
yeah, what drew you to the Kurupi legend? If you can throw some light on this, and how did you use how did you use this to explore themes of like, worthiness, then time and redemption through the princess's journey as well?
Well, I wanted to write a book that a parent could feel safe reading to their kids or letting them listen to on Audible. Because it's so few, you always have to look at ratings, and then even then you have to question it. Like, are there bad words? Are there bad situations? So
Mhm.
being a parent myself, I wanted something to give back to parents that they could, let their children read. But then also, there again, to empower the feminine. So I wanted a strong feminine character to grow up in this mystical world and show how a fully empowered feminine can be.
Wow. And I think through Princess Journey, then exploring themes of time portals and
Mhm.
curses and ancient deities, I think it's kind of a metaphorical way of healing, like the inner soul's work that we are so much talking in the healthcare and the wellness circles. So I think that exactly holds the relevance in there.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Great. Peter, so of course, I think this will definitely pique our listeners' journey, listeners' interest. And for that, if they would like to get access to your work, your novels, as well as connect with you also, what would be the best way?
You could go to www.petergunn.net. And you could also go to Amazon Kindle, type in Peter Gunn the Amazon.
Hmm. I'll make sure to add all the links and details in the show notes for our listeners. And Peter, thank you so much because you know this these stories we tell, they become the maps we live by, and today we are definitely gifted a new map, one where the feminine isn't lost in the footnotes, but definitely stands at the center, empowered, inspiring all the daughters, all the girls, all the women out there, heart wide open.
Definitely.
So much. So, to all the listeners as well, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Cosmic Confluence. If this episode moved you, share it with someone who's ready to wake up, dream deeper, or rewrite their own story. Until next time, keep walking your sacred path and stay curious always, and keep tuning into Cosmic Confluence. Thank you.